Welcome back to Questing Beast. I'm Ben. Today we're going to be taking a look at this review copy I was sent of The Cursed Chateau, which is an adventure location written for Lamentations of the Flame Princess. It was written by James Malazewski, who is the author of Grognardia, one of the first and most famous old school blogs. One of the blogs that really got the OSR rolling. The layout was done by Jez Gordon, and the layout is really fantastic. We're going to be taking a detailed look at that. And we have some cover art by Yannick Bouchard, who does a lot of the cover art for Lamentations. And it's a beautiful piece of cover art. It's full of character and detail, and it really gets across the feel of this adventure. We have our main villain here who runs this chateau, and he's been cursed in unlife to be trapped at this mansion until he is amused, because he's simply bored with life. So if you manage to amuse him enough, then you can go free. Here's our back cover. So this is a haunted house module in general. And as you can see, one of the main features of this is everything is covered in gold foil, which is just gorgeous looking. Everything is slightly shiny, and it really gives this rich texture and flavor to the entire module. As with all Lamentations adventures, we can see that the front and back end papers are useful. So we have all of the main maps all in one place, easy to refer to. And at the very back of the book, we have some of the important random encounter tables, along with some summaries of some of the NPCs. So let's take a look at what we have inside here. More gold foil. It makes the whole thing just feel rich and opulent. As always, fantastic paper quality. It's very thick. It's almost like photo paper, probably in order to hold all of this gold ink. Basic introduction by James, talking about how he's making what's essentially a funhouse dungeon here. So how much you're going to enjoy this adventure is really going to be dependent on how much you enjoy funhouse, haunted houses. There's a wide variety of rooms. A good number of them are empty, and but there are some interesting encounters here and there. By and large, though, most of the things you're going to be running into come from a random encounter chart. So he has a chart with 100 things that could be spooky, they could be dangerous, they could just be atmospheric, but you're going to roll on them every time you go from room to room. And that's really what the adventure is going to be about. So there's an element of randomness to the types of encounters that you're going to find. However, there's an underlying logic to what all the NPCs are doing there, and over time you can kind of piece that together, assuming you don't die. As we have a background, we have a section on involving the characters and random events. In general, one content warning probably at the beginning of this should be that this module does involve some adult themes, as is very common with Lamentations adventures, and includes elements like nudity and sexual violence. So although some of those things could be toned down or removed, it is part of the horrific background of this chateau. Right near the beginning, we have the D100 random event table. Some things like the characters hear a female voice say, "I thought you didn't like uninvited guests." So like little atmospheric things in the background. But you can also have full-on encounters, like an NPC character will appear. And he will have some sort of mission. He may attack the players. He may do something else. One important feature of this adventure is that there is an invisible barrier around the chateau. Basically, once you get inside the limits of the grounds, this invisible barrier comes down and you are locked in until you manage to solve everything, solve the mystery. And this, I'm a little bit mixed on this. The idea of entering a location and then there's just an invisible wall that prevents you from leaving, on the surface feels a little railroady to me. But on the other hand, it's not that different from being, for example, locked in a dungeon having to escape. I think just the invisible barrier nature of that locking in is what bothers me a bit. Perhaps there's another way to do it, like, I don't know, the forest crowds in really closely and prevents you from leaving. Or I'm not sure what would be a great solution to that. But just, it feels a little artificial, and I'm not really crazy about that. We have a summary of all of the different NPCs, and there's a good number of them that you can encounter throughout this chateau. All of them are dead. Some of them are corporeal undead, some of them are ghostly. There's a great sense of layout here in that each of these columns is a different NPC. All of their descriptions are here. Their stats are right here. Very easy to pull out the information that you need. They each get half a page, essentially, including gardeners, major domos, parlor maids, stable masters. And all of these characters have background. They're all connected together. They all have likes and dislikes. They have revenge that they are planning against other NPCs. So as you encounter them, you'll be able to piece together exactly what's going on. Turning undead works just fine here in the chateau, so clerics could be very useful. And talk a couple notes about energy drain. What happens when you die within there? Dying within the chateau is probably a bad idea, mostly because the big bad can raise you from the dead and probably have you join his undead horde. Judane, or I think it's how you pronounce his name, is our main villain. Some notes on escaping the chateau. This is the main mechanic for doing that. So what this means is if you get up to 100 points of fun, in other words, 100 things that amuse our main villain, then you're going to be able to escape. He will be freed from his ghost from being attached to this chateau, and you will be able to leave. But most of the things that are going to entertain him are not good for you. So for example, plus 20 every time a player character dies, plus 10 for levels being drained, and so on. And this fun can be decreased, for example, when you bring someone back to life, or if the characters destroy some of the main NPCs. So there's sort of like your characters are being more and more tormented as they explore this place, and that's going to lead toward you escaping. And it's questionable how quickly PCs are going to be able to realize that that's what's going on. If they play their cards right and they really dig into the history of why this place is here, that's something they could figure out. But my concern might be that you might wander around for a long period of time and not really know what you can do to get out, and then simply eventually die. A very careful party, though, I think could probably figure out what needs to be done. We have a general map key. We have a labyrinth, a hedge maze, right at the beginning of the... I'll show you a picture here. Right in front of the chateau. So you basically have to go through this hedge maze in order to enter the chateau grounds. And it's, in a sense, a little tutorial, or not really a tutorial. It walks you through some of the history of what's been happening in the chateau. And I think it's really neat for that. There's a path that goes through here, but some of the little detours take you to interesting side locations. And a lot of the history of the chateau can be gleaned from those for players that are careful. A number of different NPCs you can find here. Some dead bodies of some of the people who have died. And a variety of interesting effects. We get onto the Chateau Grounds. We have a number of things surrounding the chateau. Skip ahead a little bit. And we get onto the ground floor. Now, by and large, the layout is done exceptionally well, as I mentioned before. Things are kept within one page. There's very few paragraphs that flow from one page to the next. Usually, everything you need to know about a room is all on one page. This reduces page flipping, of course. What's also really nice is that whenever you have a page, all of the rooms being referenced can be referenced on a mini-map right there. This is something that is, for some reason, very rarely done in D&D adventures, and it's really great to see that here. Again, page flipping is reduced. You can see where you are and the context of what's going on around the room very quickly without having to change the page. We have a number of interesting rooms, including a chapel, to a old bishop that was probably a heretic and possibly a black necromancer. You can get his blessing fingers, which do horrible things. And a variety of different types of rooms. Some of these rooms have rather long descriptions. So one of my criticisms here might be that a couple sentence introduction that summarizes the most important things would, I think, be really useful. Otherwise, you're going to have to read this book in a fair amount of detail, and maybe once or twice in order to get a strong sense for each room, just to prevent you from having to pause and read the whole room before players get in there. I like things to be as snappy as possible, and long room descriptions can lead to problems there. But great layout, great little design work with these little mini-maps being there. And a lot of the flavor and adventure, as I said, is going to come from those random tables. Variety of types of rooms. We have the upper floor here, a viewing room, a library, a gallery, guest bedrooms. It's hard to really predict how this adventure is going to go just from reading it, mostly because most of the content is going to come, from random tables. But there's a wide variety of rooms from, ones that are fairly empty to ones that are very dangerous and possibly full of tons of valuables of gold if you play your cards right. And then we get all the way to the end where we have a basement, including some caverns with a possible exit from this horrible place. But it's virtually impossible to use unless you can breathe underwater for long periods of time. So that's an unlikely escape route. Normally players are going to have to solve the riddle of the chateau. And at the very end, as I mentioned, we have a reference section where we have a very succinct, very well-designed couple of pages where you can find all of the NPCs and what they do. I would have liked to see something like in Maids of the Blue Medusa, where there's what they want and what they don't want. That would have been really nice, just so that I could flip here, and then if they accidentally run into an NPC, I can quickly say, oh, here's how to run them. That would have been really cool. But this is a great little reference page. Same thing with the rest of the important tables all being here at the end. So that's the Cursed Chateau. If you want a scary, spooky little adventure, it looks like a really great choice. Gorgeous design, gorgeous layout, and you're going to have to really be in for a fairly random adventure where you're able to trust your players to roll with the punches and be okay with a very lethal environment and one in which things are not going to go as expected. Players are going to have to be smart, and they're going to have to be able to interpret these different random encounters and be able to piece together the mystery behind this place if they're going to survive. So if that's the sort of book that you're into, this is a really great choice, and it is a beautiful one on top of that. As always, links will be down in the description below where you can pick this up for yourself in print or PDF form if you would like to play it. Thanks especially should go out to my Patreon supporters, especially Robert Baxter, who is pledged at one of the highest levels. Thanks, Robert. You're amazing. You're really keeping this channel going, and I can't appreciate, or I strongly appreciate what you're doing for the channel. Thank you so much. Join me next Wednesday for when we're going to be taking a look at a book I've been wanting to read for quite some time, which is The Midlands. And we'll be looking at both of these. The main Midlands book, as well as the Midlands Expanded, and some of the beautiful cartography that recently won an Annie Award. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys next time.